I was speaking with a priest friend from another diocese this week, and as we were talking, he asked me how often I preached about COVID or about the stuff going on in the church or whatever. And I said, I don't know. I don't think that often. I mean, I mention it sometimes. And there are sometimes I preach about it. But he says he preaches about it every week. And I said, I think we have other things going on in our lives than that, and more important things to talk about sometimes. Not that it's not important, but today in these readings, I found it rather ironic because I was planning on talking about some of those things today based on the readings. And we have this lovely reading, not lovely, I guess. I find it lovely for reasons maybe no point to talk about, but this story in the first reading from Isaiah. And I don't know that much about vineyards, but it does seem to me that the owner of this vineyard has done, in fact, everything he possibly could to create a good vineyard and get grapes, you know. He picked a fertile hillside, he spaded it, and I do know something about clearing of stones. I worked on a farm for a while years ago. Planted the choicest vines. He found the best vines. He put a watchtower to watch over it, a wine press. He's got a fence around it to guard it, you know. And his disappointment that it didn't bring forth grapes, but wild grapes, not good grapes. And then he says, fine, here's what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to take away the hedge. I'm going to let animals come in and graze. I'll break down its wall. It'll be a ruin, you know. And that can sound like vindictiveness to us or punishment in a bad sense, you know. But God's punishments in the Old Testament, if we pay attention, are not because God gets in a snit and wants to vent. But God's punishments are always meant to bring Israel back. And especially if you read the early books of Scripture, you see this, it happens so many times, it's almost funny in a way, that Israel decides to break away from God, they do what they want, some kind of disaster, God says, fine, if you want to break away from my protection, you know, and then their enemies overrun them and oppress them, and they cry to God, and he says, fine, I'll take you back, and he takes them back and fixes their problem, you know. Then they go again, they do what they want against God's wrath, you know, against God's commandments, and then they're all, God says, fine, I'll send these serpents among them, you know, and Israel, after enough people get bit and die, they say, you know what the problem was, we turned away from God, and they turn back, and God fixes it, you know. This goes on and on and on. And yeah, our country, there's a lot of things going on in our country. Seems like a mess. I don't know what's going on in the church or in the country. I don't claim to have any great knowledge. I certainly don't have any insights from God. He's not told me what he's doing, you know. But you can't be determined to take God out of your culture as we are in this country, one side of it anyway, or parts of it, and then expect things to go well. I don't know how you expect that to work. Even in the church, you know, after Vatican II, this was not Vatican II's intention, but so many things ideas came into the church, you know, that had nothing to do with the church. These are not the grapes that God meant to sow, but wild grapes, you know. We have ideas like, you know, women priests, or we have bishops even who are praising people who are supporting Planned Parenthood and abortion. We have those kinds of things are wild grapes, And so it's possible God is letting us feel the consequences of these kinds of ideas that turn away from him. I don't know. But here's what I do know, that God has not left us. And if God is punishing us, or if God is letting us feel consequences of things, God's always ready to bring us back and heal us if we turn back to him. The last couplet of the psalm, O Lord God of hosts, restore us. If your face shine upon us, then we shall be saved, And so, in whatever difficulties we're in right now, there's a remedy. Ask God to restore us and to heal us, bring us back, And Paul, this reading of Paul he says, have no anxiety at all. This time that we're in, including COVID and assorted things, is a very anxiety-producing time. And Paul knows something about this. Paul's life was harder than ours. We read about him being shipwrecked and stoned, left for dead, beaten with rods, imprisoned, starved. And he's the one who's saying, have no anxiety at all. But we have to fight against anxiety, and that's fine. We fight against anxiety by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. There's still plenty to be thankful for. There's more to be thankful for right now in our lives than there is to be anxious about. We just have to remember that and maybe sometimes look for it. But we have to be conscious about, what? I'm going to look for those things for which I can be thankful. Here's the problem. I see one of the problems, and I see it in my friends and some other people, even some of my priest friends, they're constantly on this phone reading all the junk that's going on, They're glued to these programs that just feed anxiety. Yes, by all means, keep abreast of what's going on. But that doesn't mean 4 hours on your phone. Even sometimes up on vacation, I've gotten on my priest friends who are still, I'm saying, man, you're on vacation. There's nothing going to happen in the next 3 days that you have to keep up with, And so we can choose anxiety, or we can choose peace and thankfulness. Paul says, if there's something wrong, go ahead, pray about it. Make your petitions to God, with thanksgiving. And then the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding. You might say, how can someone be peaceful in a time like this? This is how. Stay connected to God in prayer. Ask for what we need. Thank God for the gifts that he's still pouring out upon us. And then this last part, especially. It is so easy to be captivated and sucked into. It's addictive, I think, of all the things that are wrong and the arguments that are going on in the church. I have someone who is constantly sending me, I don't even read them actually, I just delete them, but is constantly sending me these, articles on blog posts or something about this side of the argument, always sending me, If I read all those, I would be one anxious, angry person, I think. But Paul says, finally, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is gracious, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think on these things. And Paul doesn't mean ignore what's bad, close your eyes and hope it goes away. No, Paul was clearly a realist. But the truth is, if you look around, there is still plenty, even in the midst of this, what we call conversation, political speech and stuff where everything is spin and lies and whatever, there's still plenty of that is true in the world. There are people who are speaking the truth. There's plenty right now in this world that's honorable and just and pure. The other day I stopped and I just watched the little ones, kindergarten, I guess, or first grade or something, playing out in, for their recess. And I looked and I said, you know what? And this is what came to me, whatever is pure. I mean, the pureness and beauty of those little ones reminded me that the world is not all anger and hatred and terrorism or whatever. There's purity in the world still. Whatever is gracious, whatever is excellent. And sometimes we have to look for those things and point them out. The other day in the grocery store, I had about 3 things, and there was a woman with a cart stacked up there, and I'm standing behind her, and she looks around and she says, "You have 3 things. Why don't you go?" I thought, that's gracious. And I try to remember that in the week, If there's anything worthy of praise, there's plenty still worthy of praise in this world. We're going to hear today from someone talking about CareNet and the work they do. They're doing excellent work, beautiful work, And so it's our choice, really, when it boils down to it. You might think it's not, but it really is, I'll never forget, you don't hear that much profundity from professional sports people, but in one interview, the interviewer was saying, yeah, but what about this, this, and this, what the other team was going to do? He says, I don't have any control over that. I can only control my effort, my preparation, and my attitude. Those 3 things I control, and that's what I will control. We don't have any control over other people's speech or their lies or their spin or this or that or the other. But I can control what I look at. I can control how much of the day I spend looking at these things. I can control where I look, so I can look for things that are excellent and beautiful and pure. I don't have to look for the other things, I can control my attitude. I can say, Jesus, I trust in you, even when I have no idea what's going on. I can remember that Jesus says, the gates of hell shall not prevail against you. The church is never going to fall apart, even though things can be difficult, So we can control those things. We have the promise of God to hold us through. We can, like you've heard me say this before, if you have time to worry, you have time to pray, And so let's not let this, whatever we're in the country, in the world, in the church, tear us down, Let it not conquer us. But let us, as Paul says in a different letter, let us conquer the world through our faith and through our trust in God.